Hi G Session viewers, my name is Alyssa Kurtzman and I'm the design director of G Project, a public arts campaign that is breaking down negative ideas about immigrants. It's really quite simple. We are bringing people together to tell their stories and ask the big question, what is your G status? For those of you that are new, welcome. We're so happy to have you, and welcome back to anyone who's watched our videos previously. We are bringing folks together to ask that question, to learn more about where they're from and what their personal journey has been. For example, my own, I am considered a G1 and on my dad's side and a G2 on my mom's side. So what does that mean? Well, my dad was born elsewhere and my mom was born in the United States, but her parents immigrated from elsewhere. And that's sort of how the numbers track back. So it would be great for you to join us online and tell us a little bit about your own story and what your G status is. But in the meantime, we would love for you to tune in to our next incredible guest. And we are very excited because this month of March, we are bringing an all-female lineup together to celebrate Women's History Month. So I'm very excited, as is my colleague Richard Pelzer, who you will hear from at the end of this video to close out. So thank you again for tuning in, and I hope you enjoy our next guest.
Thanks, Alyssa. Hi, my name is Kevyn Fairchild, and I'm going to be your host for this particular G session. And I'm very happy to be back and part of the project again. I actually was interviewed by the wonderful Lorna Harris a little while ago for my own session. And today I am very happy to be joined by Amoy Barnes, who is a great friend of mine. She is one of the co-hosts of the On the Run NYC podcast, along with Althea Stevens. And she's also a candidate for the 49th City Council District representing the North Shore of Staten Island. So, Amoy, welcome.
Thank you so much, Kevyn, for having me. I appreciate it.
You got it. Thanks so much for joining us. And I'm really excited to talk to you about this project, also because the history of the project, which people can look at the website and see like the full realization of what's happening here. So let's start from the beginning. What is your G status?
So this is great because I just found this out. My G status is zero, G0. I am an immigrant from Jamaica. My family and my mother and I immigrated here when I was 4 years old from Jamaica. So I come from a family of immigrants. Because I came here so young, I almost consider myself like a first generation American because I've spent a majority of my life here in America in Staten Island, New York.
That's awesome. And what was it like growing up as an immigrant from Jamaica and Staten Island?
Well, I mean, it was always very, very strict in my household. It was always very strict. I wasn't, the type of kid that was, allowed to do sleepovers or anything like that, because that's not a part of our culture. That's not like very traditional, like you go outside and play, but I couldn't go outside and play until the whole house was spick and span clean. And I'm like, why do I have to clean the house every time I go outside and play? Like, it's just like, so, it was very strict. It was very disciplined, I was like, always kind of like, we didn't eat out a lot either. That was something that was really always very like interesting. Like I was a kid growing up, I was like, hey, I want to go out and eat pizza. My mom was like, pizza? Like what? You better eat what's in the fridge. What me cook you in the fridge, all right? I don't have time for pizza, okay? So yeah.
Yeah. How important was food in growing up in terms of like the culture and everything in your house?
Yeah, no, food was very important. My mom, she worked really hard. She, immigrated here from Jamaica. She worked 2 jobs to take care of me. She was a single mother, but she always found time to cook. And I always look back at that and really appreciate it. She always found time to cook. She always made sure there was food in the fridge. But also we ate very traditional food, right? Like, the things that we ate was like oxtail, which is like my favorite thing. And then you're like, oh, I love oxtail. People are like, what is oxtail? Like, it's my favorite thing in the world. You know, like my favorite breakfast on Sundays is ackee and saltfish. You know, like ackee and saltfish is a traditional Jamaican meal. Ackee is actually a traditional, it's the fruit of Jamaica. It's a very traditional fruit in the Caribbean. And I loved ackee and saltfish, but we were only really allowed to eat it on like special occasions or on Sundays. So I would always get very excited when my grandmother made ackee or my mother made ackee because it's my favorite meal. So food is really important. And when we all, but the great thing is that when my family and I, of course, immigrated to America, we also, you know, take in other traditions. And I think that's what's so beautiful about, you know, being an immigrant and growing up in America is that, yes, you have your own family traditions, you have your own food, but one of the things that my grandmother loves to make is macaroni and cheese, right? She makes this awesome 3-cheese macaroni. And it's something, once again, that's not like a traditional thing in Jamaica. We love mac and cheese, but it's something that we learned here, lasagna as well. So, you know, we bring our own culture, but we also absorb other cultures.
And looking back, can you think of a time when you became very aware of cultural differences in your own experiences from those that are maybe growing up around you, or you encountered someone that had traditions that weren't necessarily like what you grew up with, and what that was like?
Yeah, I think that Justin, it's one of those things that's really interesting because going to school and meeting different people. One thing that I can say that I'm really proud of is that I always went to a very diverse school, you know, and I had lots of diverse friends. And so when I did go over their homes, I had one friend, she was Korean, and I would eat the Korean food at her house, and I was like, oh, this is so cool. And then, you know, I had one friend, she was Chinese, we'd have food at their house. And then I come home and be like, Ma, can we eat this? And she's like, what? Like, she's like, eat what's in the fridge. And I don't have the time to make that for you. So, you know,
Love
so
it.
you know, it was always great growing up here in Staten Island. I grew up on the North Shore. I got to meet so many different people and just learn about different cultures and traditions. And, you know, when I would get to go visit my friends and go to their houses, they would share their cultures and their traditions with me. And then when they would have the opportunity to visit my family, and I would share my traditions with them.
That's awesome. And I understand you have a photograph that you would like to share with us.
Yes, yes. So I don't know if you guys can see it. Hold on, let me see. It's like, hold on. It's on my
Yep,
can
we
you
can see
guys
it.
see
Yep.
it?
Yeah, we can see it.
It's me and my mom and my grandmother, 3 generations of G0, I guess.
Wow, that's
So
amazing.
yeah, so my whole family, not all of them, not everybody, but a big portion of my family immigrated here in the late 70s and the 80s. And everybody came here and just, you know, to come and live the American dream and just to have access to different opportunities, you know, and I'm so proud of what my family has been able to accomplish. A family of very, very strong women who's taught me a lot and gave me a lot of discipline to be able to do what I'm doing now, which is running for office.
Yeah, let's talk about that. So you're running for city council. What inspired you to do that?
So, you know, I've always been a community advocate and organizer. That's who I am. And, you know, I've never been a person who's ever thought I would run for office. Of course, you know, when you come from, you know, an immigrant family, you know, when you get a good job, you know, I told my grandmother I'm running for office. She said, "Mina, that's not why you run for office. You have good government job, you know?" So, running for office is not something that I ever thought to aspire to. What I was proud of is the way I've been able to serve and help my community and be of service to them. And what I realized is that the best way that I could be of service to my community is to run for office and is to work to make sure that we get the services and resources that we need for everyone, and that I could do the work of making sure that people have access to a better quality of life.
And if you if you could think of just a couple of the main issues that you're really sort of thinking about when you're running for office, what would those be?
I would say, you know, one of my big issues is education. I work in education right now, and I'm a big proponent of access to education that is good for everyone, right? It's not about where you live, what school district you're in. Every single place you live, no matter who you are, you should have access to a good quality education. You should be getting access to good services. You shouldn't have an issue, you should be, wanting to make sure that our children know how to read and write at their grade level. These are things that are really important to me. Then I think about, of course, healthcare. Staten Island is the only borough without a public hospital, and I think that's a travesty. And because we don't have a public hospital means that we are not getting our fair share of public healthcare dollars. And that's not just on the city level, that's on the state level too. So really making sure that we're getting access to our public health dollars, but also that we're working to create a wellness care system and not this crisis care system of a healthcare system that we live in, and taking care of people, right?
Yeah.
And then another thing that I'm really big on, and well, I'm big on a lot of things, honestly.
You are.
We don't have all day, of course, but housing is really important. Like housing is really, really important. I'm a young professional. I understand how expensive New York City has become for working class people. Growing up here on Staten Island, I know so many of my friends who had to move because they can't afford to live here anymore. And I think that's a travesty. People should be able to find a home in the place that they grew up. That's a responsibility that the city is supposed to take on. And so making sure that we have good quality, affordable housing across the board so people can live in the communities they grew up is a really, really important priority to me. I don't want to see that what they call in the Caribbean, they call it a brain drain. Immigrant countries talk about the brain drain of folks leaving and going other places. Well, I think there's a brain drain here in our own community when our young people are leaving their home to go other places. That means that talent and those services that they could provide are being taken someplace else, and we want to avoid that. So those are just some top issues I have.
Yeah. What do you think that there's something that you kind of bring with you from your own status as growing up as an immigrant and with family that just recently came to the U.S. that that's kind of sticking with you that you're going to carry with you into office?
The thing that's really, really important to me is making sure people know that they have access to opportunity. One of the things that I say all the time is that we all pay taxes. I don't care who you are. I don't care where you're from. I don't care what you look like. We all pay taxes. And the important role of your elected official is to make sure that people understand how to access the resources and services that their tax-paying dollars are used for. And that's the divide that I've seen in government, that all too often there's all these resources, there's all these services, but nobody knows how to access them. So I'm a big proponent of making sure people have access to the resources and services that they need, so that they have access to the opportunities that they need, so that they can fulfill and become whatever it is that they want to become. Because isn't that what the American dream is? Isn't that the whole ideology behind, coming to America? When people come here, and I say this all the time, they leave everything behind.
Yeah.
Everything, like I know that I learned so much when I talked to my grandmother and my aunts and uncles. They were doctors and lawyers and teachers in Jamaica. And when you immigrate to America, you have to start all over again. And so at least if people are starting all over again, we want to make sure that government is not hindering their success, but providing a stepping stone to their success so that they can fulfill and become whoever it is they want to become.
And of course, you're also the co-host of the On the Run NYC podcast,
Yes.
along with Amoy Barnes. You're Amoy, along with Althea, who was going to be on a future, was actually on a different episode of the G Sessions. So talk about the podcast for a second. What's that show about?
Yeah, so the podcast is Althea Stevens and myself. Althea Stevens is a candidate for city council in the 16th district located in the Bronx. And we talk about running for office. We talk about being two women running for office. We talk about being two women of color running for office. And we talk about what it's like and try to make it transparent and try to make it open and just try to really educate people on the fact that this is possible. This is not something that's like, it's not easy. I will not lie. It is not easy, but it is possible. And so we want to make sure that people understand that here are the things that you should know. Here are things that you should be aware of. But also the important thing is that we're working together. I think that that's a very, very important thing that we want to make people understand. That leadership is not something that you should be doing on your own. Rising tides lift all boat. And whatever it is you want to pursue, make sure you're bringing other people with you, and make sure you're asking for help along the way.
And how do people find out more about you and about the podcast? Where should they go?
So if you want to find out more about me, I just want to shout out Kevyn Fairchild, who's our awesome producer. Holla, holla, making it all happen. Yes. If you want to find out more about my me and my campaign, and what I call it a people powered campaign, because I say this all the time. I cannot run for office alone. Nobody gets to where they are on their own. AmoyBarnes.com, AMOYBARNES.com. And also, if you want to find out more about On the Run NYC, just ontherunnyc.com or info@ontherunnyc.com. Email us. And same thing with me. You could always email. I check my email religiously. info@Amoy for Council, FOR council.com, or you can email Amoy, AMOY, @Amoy for FOR council.com.
Perfect. Well, thank you ever so much for joining us on the G Sessions, and good luck to you. And I'm looking forward to the next episode of the podcast.
Thank you so much, Kevyn.
And Richard, back to you.
Wow, what a great story. Thank you very much for sharing. My name is Richard Pelzer. I'm the Director of Communications and Marketing for the G Project. As Alyssa Chrisman mentioned in the beginning, we are a public art project. I would love to invite everyone to our website, which is gproject.org. And I ask you to please sign up for all of our social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, and now this new YouTube channel. If you are new to our YouTube channel, I ask everyone to please subscribe right there below. And we would love to actually hear any comments. So please catch us every Wednesday at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for a new story. And we ask you to please share your project. And we ask the question, what is your G status? Thank you very much for watching. We'll see you soon.